everybody. Welcome to my podcast series, actually my webcast series. Today, I'm interviewing somebody I've been following for a while on Facebook. I'm really happy. Thank you for taking the time to spend time with me today. I've been following your posts. I appreciate your support. You're one of the first people that reached out to me when I was going off to the panel for the practice of leadership, and you were on the subsequent panel when we were in Colorado. A big welcome to Jacoby Ballard. Yay! I'm saying your name right? Yay!
Yeah.
Thank you. Yoga TrailBlazers. Once I get your name wrong in my head, I try to hang on to it and call you the wrong name for years. So I'm glad I'm on the right track. So I want to thank you for being part of the Yoga TrailBlazers series and for all the incredible work you're doing through yoga awareness, social justice, your third root program, everything. So I'm excited to talk to you. Thank you for being on the call today.
Thank you so much, Diane.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got started in yoga, and what it is about yoga that speaks to your heart. Big one, I know. That's meaty.
I I started meditating in high school as part of a senior project. I was part of a group called Student Empowerment, which tried to get students involved in our own education. And uh, my senior year, we were piloting a senior project where seniors could use one class per semester to spend on whatever they wanted, whatever was interesting to them, whatever fired them up.
Nice.
And so there was 8 of us that were piloting it, and for some reason I chose meditation. I didn't know anyone that meditated. I hadn't really seen images of anyone that meditated, but I chose that. And I was a jock at the time. I was a soccer and basketball player, and it really improved my basketball game, meditating.
Did that surprise you?
Yeah, I was like, this is this one thing that I'm doing. Why I didn't expect it to, I don't know, to affect my game. I thought I would just be like sitting there, maybe find some peace and calm, and then go on to the rest of my life. I didn't think of it as like integrating in the rest of my life.
That's cool. Okay.
And then it just kind of continually made things that I was doing better and made me better at them because I was more present, right? That's what meditation teaches.
Yeah.
Um, and and then in college, I was kind of forced into yoga because there was a wellness credit at my college, and I procrastinated and procrastinated, and then the last semester that I could possibly get it done, they were like, okay, the only thing you can do is yoga with this 70-year-old woman. And I was like,
wow.
well, all right.
That's pretty funny.
And thank goodness for Lillian McMullen. She was this 70-year-old woman that her life had been radically transformed by yoga. She had not known how to read or drive a car before her own voyage in yoga, and it just totally impacted her life. And it was also really, really timely, I think, that as like a young jock that like I had a forceful relationship with my body of like I can make my body go up mountains. I can make it run 16 miles. I can, that I was learning from this 70-year-old woman who was like, no. We're gonna chill that out, and we're gonna slow it down, and we're gonna pay attention to, the messages that you're saying all the time to your body and the way that you're not loving it, even though you're perpetually using it and driving it into the ground.
Wow.
So, and then I kept doing it, and a spot on my college campus became available to teach yoga. And so without a certification, I began teaching.
I think a lot of people start that way.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2000, so different standards. Yoga was in a different place. And what I taught 5 classes a week.
Wow.
And what I fell in love with was this Wednesday noontime class where I taught administrators of the college. And they just came with such real life stuff. Someone was having a hysterectomy. Someone's son was suicidal. Someone was getting a divorce. They were going through momentous things in their lives, and they came to my class as like a young 20-year-old yoga teacher to get them through that. And that was just such an honor, and I just got to witness how the practice impacted these major transitions in their life, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is how special, like this is all I want to do, hold
Nice.
space for people to go through hard stuff and get to the other side of love.
You know what's crazy is how the universe will present the opportunity for you to serve others and for you to grow yourself in such an exponential way. Who would
Yeah,
have thought? Because you weren't all excited to take this yoga course and
yeah.
you left it to the last possible second because that was the exact right time for you to
Right.
step into your power and your ability to help others. So how amazing is that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. When I look back on it, I'm like, of course, this is how it happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I always find that if you're not listening, right, if you're not being present, you're not listening, the universe often will just slap you right in the face. It'll just
Totally.
go, hey, right here,
Get this.
get this. This is for you. So, you know what also excites me? I noticed behind you, you have jars of herbs. You're an herbalist. How did you get into
Yeah.
that?
Um, I I grew up in a small town in Colorado, and we had wonderful doctors that were incredibly responsive and involved in our lives. And I thought that that's just how healthcare was. And
Hmm.
I wanted to become a doctor, like Dr. Harrington and Dr. Knaus. And then I left my small town and had to be on the college insurance system, and it was terrible.
It was killing you.
And I felt dismissed and pathologized and just thrown on medications that like didn't actually help. Um, and I was becoming a social justice activist at the same time and was coming to understand all of the industrialized systems that impact our lives every day, right? Like the
Hmm.
prison industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, um, and had started to kind of like reject medicine in this political way.
Hmm.
And then I went to study. I went to work in Guatemala, and I worked with a reforestation group. And one of the things that I did was establish a medicinal herb garden for the small community. It was a small village of maybe 50 people, and all of the grandmas in the area knew plants so
Hmm.
well,
Hmm.
and they had to keep that secret
Oh,
because they were indigenous people,
okay.
and the Spanish colonizers had like squashed that out of them,
Oh,
and indigenous practices just in general had been um, a thought. They the Spanish colonizers and their descendants, right, had convinced indigenous people in this community that their ways were backwards and not useful and
that's
all these
heartbreaking.
things. The grandmas didn't agree with that,
Of course, yeah.
but their kids did, who were adult age, and so I got really curious about that kind of ancestral knowledge in relationship to the land and to plants. And at the same time, the family that I was staying with had a child, and the child was incredibly malnourished.
Mm.
And there was a program about 5 kilometers away where the program would take care of mothers and their malnourished children and kind of teach them how to cook on a very limited budget in a way that was most nourishing and so forth. And it was a program where the mothers would have to go and stay there for a month.
Mm.
And this mother that I was staying with, she had 5 other children. She couldn't go and stay and like learn how to do something she was already doing every day.
Mm.
It just didn't make sense to her, and it didn't make sense to her husband. And we had many conversations about it. And um, that just broke my heart that there was allopathic medicine, there was medicine there, but it was not culturally relevant.
Mm.
And there was a ancestral knowledge of plants and a way to take care of themselves herbally, but that was disrespected as well. Um, so I got really curious about that. And when I came back to the States, I kind of reflected that um, my social justice community largely didn't want to partake in medical interventions. But at the same time, there was no other system to take care of ourselves. Now, 15 years later, lots of my friends are acupuncturists and massage therapists and nurses and, have those skills. But at the time, looking around other 20 to 30-year-olds, there wasn't that kind of investment in our own healthcare. So it was at that time that I both became a yoga teacher, a certified yoga teacher, and went to school for Western herbalism. And I think of that as, 100 years ago, all of our grandmothers and their mothers and grandmothers knew so many of the plants that grew around them and
Yeah.
how to use it as medicine.
Yeah.
And because of the way that medicine is invested in capitalism and so therefore invested in sickness because it's a way to profit, I think so many of us have lost our ancestral knowledge.
We have, most definitely, most definitely. My family's from Barbados, and I was on vacation one time, and I wasn't feeling well. And my grandma's like, "I'm gonna make you some bush tea," and I'm like, "I don't know what that is." She ran out into the yard, got a bunch of stuff, put it in a cheesecloth, boiled it on the stove. I had to drink it, and sure enough, I felt better. But it's amazing to go with somebody that can show you on the landscape, in the yard, in a field across the street from their house, what is out there that you can eat and you can ingest and you can have in your body that will make you feel better. And that was a big part of, culture. I remember being a kid making coconut oil,
Yeah.
going out into the ditch and picking up all the old coconuts and bringing them over, and my grandma shucking them, putting them in a huge pot and boiling off the oil. Like, it was,
Mm.
we drank coconut water all the time because coconuts were everywhere. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting to see that type of medicine or that type of healing or that type of self-care come to light. And I think it's pretty amazing that you've taken on that particular modality to serve your community. So tell me all about Third Root. I know you're doing a little fundraising for that, so let's hear. I'd like to hear about this community center, this project.
Sure. So there's two arms of it. Third Root Community Health Center is a health center in Flatbush, Brooklyn, which is a community where there's like 12 languages spoken.
Oh, wow.
A really diverse community, and also a place that's rapidly gentrifying because people want to be around the diversity, but then they change it and jack up rents, and then not everyone can live there anymore. Um, and there's been a lot of recent conversations about gentrification that we're actually involved in, because we've been there for 6 years, but we're a pretty new business. So we're a worker-owned cooperative, which means that 8 people own the business. They're
Okay.
also all practitioners. We offer acupuncture, massage, herbal medicine, yoga, and health workshops, and that's within the co-op. And then we also have a nonprofit arm, which is started last year in 2013. It does a lot of the social justice work that we don't get people to pay for directly. So we seek grants and do grassroots fundraising for that. One of the newest programs in the last year that we're developing is a diversity training for yoga teachers.
Yes.
With the understanding that yoga teachers have a platform every time we teach. And if we're not aware of the ways that we've internalized fat phobia and racism and misogyny and transphobia, and all of the oppressions, right, ableism, then we're bound to repeat it through our words, through our expectations of the bodies in the room. And it's interesting, right, that yoga is this modality that is assumed to be healing. But I think due to the lack of kind of internal reflection on the ways that we perpetuate those oppressions, if we're not aware of it, then for so many people, right, it can be a place where maybe healing can occur sometimes under the right circumstances with a particular teacher, but not just walking into any old yoga class.
No, you're right.
So we're working to change that, to give yoga teachers a basic training and kind of tools for self-reflection, and also community around it, right? That's one of the great things about our relationship, Diane, is that we can kind of reflect back to each other, right? Like, ooh, this hurts, or this terrible thing happened, and what happens to you might not happen to me, but if I hear about what happens to you, then I'm bound to not repeat it and recycle it in my classes, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So that's one of the things we're doing. We're also in a period of fundraising for it, and one of the models of fundraising that I've learned as part of social justice work is called grassroots fundraising,
Yes.
which is where we tap our own communities
Yep.
to fund the work. And that's, I see that as kind of the most sustainable kind of fundraising because um, one, there's a myth that only wealthy people give away money, but actually the people with the lowest 50% of income give the highest percentage of their income away.
I believe that. Yeah, I've read that. I've seen that in my own work. So that's so true. People who
Yeah,
have nothing will give everything they have, which I think is
right. And
pretty
we're
amazing.
invested in our communities, right?
Yes.
And what benefits us. And
Yeah.
we're going to support it and keep it alive.
Yes.
So that's what we're asking for right now is, I've had donors all over the country who believe in the work that we're doing, who haven't necessarily been to our training, but or been to our center, but are invested in it. Like, that's a good idea. That's needed.
Yes.
Uh,
What a
so collectively, we're trying to raise $8,000 right now to support all of our programs, and I'm trying to raise $2,500 by myself.
You're going to raise 2,500. You're not trying. It's going to happen. So we're going to support you in that and share. So I'll make sure to put the link right onto this the video where people
Okay,
can
great.
donate when I share that. So I'll put that
Great.
in the description box down below, and I'll also put a link up on the screen because it's such important work that you're doing. I love your diversity project, going out and empowering teachers with that knowledge, because I think a lot of people um, don't really understand that their words have meaning and that their words can be deeply hurtful, even if they're not meant to be. Because I even
Right.
remember putting up a post on Facebook that was supposed to be supportive, and sometimes the way you word things or your message doesn't come across in a way that's uplifting. So that's very important. That language is so important. That's
Right.
amazing. So tell me how you got involved. We just did a call together at the beginning of the month with Beyond Duality as part of the Off the Mat series. Tell me how you got involved with that.
With Off the Mat.
Yes.
I had heard about Off the Mat into the world for years and their Seva project.
Yeah.
And I actually had a lot of resistance and a lot of critique and kind of like made me cringe a little bit.
Why is that? Because I started in that same space too. Why is that?
I think just, my partner writes about how many white ladies go out to save brown bodies.
I have this conversation all the time. Yep.
And it seemed like it was that, like
Yeah.
raise $20,000 and then go across the ocean to spend time with people who, yeah, are suffering and who you don't have any cultural context for their
Yes.
suffering.
Yes. Yes. Very much
Uh,
so.
so I knew people that were doing that fundraising, and I was kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll stay away from you. I don't
Yes.
think you're quite my sangha.
Yes.
Um, And then I met Sean. I was trained at Kripalu, and I was at a Kripalu yoga teachers conference, and Sean was the keynote speaker. And I was like, all right, let's go, Sean Corn, let's throw down. Um, and I asked her hard questions, and she answered them gracefully and with a lot of compassion, and really heard me in a way that no other yoga teacher had at that point. I told her one of the places where I face the most transphobia and hurt is in the yoga classroom.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with your teachers to train them to make sure that that doesn't happen? And she said, first of all, I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
That's awful. You deserve to be in a yoga classroom to heal just like anyone else.
Mhm.
I imagine you're asked to educate people when you're just there to receive healing, and I'm so
Mhm.
sorry.
Mm.
Um, and then she talked about a number of things that they're doing, and people like Nikki Myers and Teo Drake, who now are dear, dear comrades in the work that I do. Um, and then I went to talk to her afterwards, and I was a little nervous talking to this like cover girl yoga
Yes.
teacher,
Yes. Yoga
and
celebrity.
she was, yeah, and
Yeah.
she was so real,
Yeah.
and it's something that I've continued to be inspired by about Sean, is that even though she's famous and her name, floats in many households around the country, she's a person of great integrity
Mm.
and great alliance, and she's open to learn more and see shine the light onto areas where she didn't have an understanding before. And so then I went to their training, their basic training, and it was really great in a lot of ways. And their discussion on power and privilege was not great in a lot of ways.
Okay. Yeah.
And my friend Hillary Lopes, who's a black woman teaching in Brooklyn, and I were on a phone call with Hala, and afterwards just being like, these are all the problems that we see with your training and all the reasons that people like us won't come
Yes.
unless you change it.
Yes.
And I know you've had similar conversations with Hala
I
of
have.
like,
Yeah.
I don't see myself reflected in who off the mat is portraying themselves to be.
Yes. Very much. So.
And I've seen them change actually
Yeah.
over the last 3 years of being involved with them, which, there's so many yoga teachers and yoga institutions that are like, nope, this is just how we do it. We're
Yeah.
not going to change.
Yeah. I find that, right? There's resistance
Yeah.
out there for this. I know this.
Yeah. And so I was so impressed by them, and I've been continually they've drawn me in and like bolstered my own leadership at the same time. They like see my shadows and see my harm and my triggers and can gently kind of move me and help me evolve. And so that combination I feel like is just a great relationship to have, this like mentorship and being protected and being challenged and drawn out.
That's beautiful. It inspires me. I'm still kind of on the fence. I dipped my toe in the pool with the Beyond Duality. I said I'll go small.
Yeah.
Though these topics interest me, I'll tap into that, and then
Yeah.
I'll see where it takes me. And so far, the people that I've met have been really really inspiring, like Tio and yourself. And I just think to myself, maybe. Maybe. But
Yeah.
I think it's doing great work, and I like to see it evolve. This is amazing. So what's in the future for you?
Well, I think continuing to do these diversity trainings, we're pitching it to studios around the country,
Hmm.
um, with the immediate interest of reducing harm
Hmm.
that yoga teachers do, and with a more grand vision that yoga teachers can become change makers.
Hmm.
Um, so I think the other part of it for me needs to be the leadership development and support of people like yourself that don't necessarily see themselves reflected in media around yoga, um, and who need doors to be opened for them in the ways that white pretty teachers like Sean or Shiva Ray have the doors open for them all the time. you
Yes.
know
Yes. Very much
um,
so.
so whatever I can do to support others' leadership and be in a position of alliance. I really believe in yoga, and also I'm a Buddhist, and the same thing is happening in Buddhism around conversations around difference and justice.
Hmm.
And so I think that's just my work. I spent so many years getting frustrated that like the sangha that I wanted was not there.
Was not there. Yep.
And what I've learned is that it's not there because I have to create it.
These are the lessons that we learn. I think it's so funny because I feel the same way. And then in one of my teacher trainings, somebody said to me, "It's not there because you haven't created it." And I was like, "Oh, now I have to step in.
Right?
Oh, now I got to step into that.
Damn.
Damn it, right? Now I have to step into that." But it feels really wonderful to step into that because once you shine your light in that way, you attract other people who are looking for that community space. So it
Right.
becomes it kind of it evolves kind of organically that way,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and I think yoga and Buddhism have such tools to offer social justice of like really sitting with ourselves and like
Hmm.
looking at all the mental patterns that we've internalized in this really oppressive society that we live in,
Exactly.
and to unwork that and unravel it, and focus here and then go and do work out there from that place of awareness.
From that place of awareness, amazing. I want to thank you today for such an incredible conversation. I got off to a little bit of a rough start with our technology, but I'm
No
glad we
problem.
eventually got it working. And I
Me too.
thank you so much for sharing your vision, for sharing Third Root, which I'll be putting information down below for those of you who want to support this community initiative. It is when we work together that we all rise together. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time today.
Thank you, Diane. It's a pleasure.
Namaste.
Namaste.